Welcome to the second episode of the Hypothesizzle podcast. Once again, it's me, Jensen, and together with me is my co-host Bjorn. And today we are going to be exploring a retrospective kind of topic. What do you wish you were told 8 years ago? And this
Yep.
is the question that we ask ourselves. And given the knowledge that we have today, what advice would we have given ourselves? So for me, it'll be 17-year-old Jensen, and for Bjorn, well, you can share your age and let people figure it
Oh
out
yeah.
themselves.
Um, 8 years ago I'll be like 22. Yeah. So I think 22 me back then I probably just gotten out from NS. If I'm not wrong.
And as to why 8 years ago, well, I mean, since that this is going to be always be tied back into esports of sorts, and since both of us have kind of like dipped our toes in esports in a fair regard, so
Mm-hmm.
8 years ago it's like right before the first TI happened, right before season one for League of Legends Worlds for League of Legends occurred. And this is why we're gonna look at things back from that perspective. And what will we have told ourselves given what we know now? And what is
Okay.
Bjorn? You start things off with your
Yeah. I
first
mean,
piece of advice
yeah.
for yourself and perhaps for the audience as
I
well.
mean, I guess today is has a little bit more of a personal touch to it. But we try and like link it back to sports in general, I guess. So the first point that I did some thinking, and the first point I actually thought of was that you shouldn't really go and study for a degree. More rather, you should actually um enjoy it and have and the challenge it involves. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that don't like get a degree just because I want to be an engineer, and so I take up engineering, or like I want to be a I think I'm interested in IT, and so I become like an IT programmer. So for my history, I actually graduated from Neon Poly. So back then, like 16-year-old me didn't have any idea what I wanted to do in life because based on our education system, we kind of have to decide at that point of time what we want to do. And I wasn't really like a JC material, so I pretty much chose poly. And the first thing I just picked was like, okay, you know what? I think the IT is like going to be a thing back then. And so I decided that, and I just jumped into it. And before I knew it, I think like 2 years into it, I kind of regretted that quite a lot. So fast forward, I went for my army, I came out, and then I decided to take a degree. And that's where I decided to do something that I really, really liked. Be it whether it will eventually become a job or not, um, wasn't really like a factor, but I just wanted to do something that I really like and didn't want to regret like not picking up and learning something that was off my interest. And so I actually went to LaSalle and then I like redid my diploma for graphic design, which I later on majored in design communications in my degree year. So that was pretty much my life story. So of course later on when I move forward, when I get my jobs, I realized like the degree didn't really matter. It's just like a certain benchmark to show like your academic capabilities. But apart from that, you don't really need it to be, like all related. I mean, I think no matter what picked up during the time when you're actually in your education, there is bound to be something that you take away as long as you're actually passionate about it. Yeah.
So it's interesting that you talk about the degree not mattering in the end, because this is a very sensitive topic that a lot of Singaporeans hold dear about. What's the role of education in the Singaporean society? And you talk about there being a certain level of regret in the decisions that you have made, and then in the end you went on to say that yeah, do it for the interest that you have had. So could you share a little bit more about your experience in LaSalle and how this experience has changed you, or if you were to say finish Polytechnic, and this is 8 years ago, so it's 22 and you're redoing your diploma in LaSalle, how would this new insight have changed the way you approach your learning in LaSalle?
Mm, I guess hmm. I mean first off, it has to do with like the passion and the things you like, right? So actually in my time in LaSalle, I was like I guess I was a much older student as compared to my other classmates, who came out fresh from O levels. So with that, even like our perspective in like the way we see things and in life was very, very different. So when I went in, I did pick up quite a lot of interesting stuff. I managed to like even see things in the perspective of like the younger classmates because you were once there, and then seeing them the way they act and things like that kind of reminds you of like maybe what a foolish person you were once upon a time. Yeah. Apart from that, I guess Asian culture wise is always about the race of time, especially in the Singaporean perspective as well, right? So of course back then I did had the fear of just dropping the course back when I was in polytechnic to kind of pursue something that I really like in exchange for having to retain and yeah I mean I just had that fear of just letting down my parents, so I actually like just stuck it up and went through with it. So yeah, if I really had a choice, I probably would have just actually I probably would have like just dropped it and picked up something to save a lot more time. Like I really think time is an essence right now.
So this is the whole pursue your passion, else you're not wasting time chasing a degree and doing things that you don't really like.
Yeah, pretty much, right? I mean, you go like, I mean, like 3 years is a lot of time if you think about it.
Because I have a very different take on this. I mean, I'm not trying to dispute what you have brought up, but this is advice that I always give my juniors in university, and that is to take a genuine interest in whatever you do. So even if you end up doing a degree that you feel that, okay, that might not necessarily be a direct application for me, especially those people who, I mean, I stayed in this place called University Town in NUS, so it's like it's like this conclave within what a lot of people would accuse of being a very elitist sort of ivory tower. So, but there was a lot of chance for people like me who was in the engineering faculty to mix around with people from other faculties as well. And there was always going to be this sense of bias regret of sorts, as in BYERS, like that you commit to a faculty and then you wonder as in did I make the right choice? Am I going to be employed in the future, especially for those in the FASS areas? And they would always have this sort of like regrets where when they enter the second year, the third year, and they're like, oh my god, where am I ever going to find employment, especially if my grades are not at the top of the class? And for me, as somebody who ended up in a field completely outside of engineering, and it's not just it's like, oh, you study engineering to do finance and stuff like that. I feel that I've actually helped took your advice of sorts. I somehow came across that form of enlightenment in some way or another, and I was able to make, I have to say, a very much more fulfilling use of time. I mean, it's like I was part of a benefit of a very privileged group to begin with, but I think I was able to leverage on that pretty well. And but the difference between me and the other people who were in those privileged groups and they continue on to do their own things and they complain about the same insecurities as well, or being stuck within a certain archetype, is that it's about taking a genuine interest and like you have like minors to fulfill, you have additional things to do, and a lot of people would approach these additional projects as like, yeah, they're burdens and stuff like that. But for me, it's the additional electives with that I felt that was truly interesting, because that's where I was able to say that, well, I'm going to take a little bit of classes outside of my basket over here so that I can learn more about media and marketing, and these are the things that ultimately helped me when I started to pursue a career in esports, because it gives me a larger perspective about sports and society. It gave me a larger perspective about advertising in the new media digital age of sorts as well. And I think that I've gone in one big circle, but I just want to concur with you on the point. It's that when you take a genuine interest in things, it not just saves time, but I feel that it enhances your ability to learn as well, and you just get so much more of it because you can see and you start to draw all these connections as you start to learn things, and you start to see these applications in real life as compared to when you're learning for the sake of learning or learning for the sake of pursuing something in itself.
All right.
So, I mean, now this is where I share the one thing, the first thing that I told myself 8 years ago is to learn how to network properly and have a people plan around you. So this is actually very tied into to a book that I read recently. It's called Never Eat Alone, and it talks about the importance of having a people plan. And I realized, and one of the bigger regrets I've had in life is that I always look back and it's like Jensen as a person. So I, as a person, has always had very few friends. I've always had very few people around me because I was this person who was always very pushing myself very hard. I was trying to do things that other people couldn't do, and it would always make me kind of push other people away as well when they weren't really as committed towards it. But the insights from this book, it talked about the psychology of weight loss, right? And they talk about group weight loss efforts always tend to be more successful as compared to individual weight loss efforts because you then have a network of people to hold you accountable to the things that you say. And this is one of the things I wish I'd done better is to network better, not just finding more friends, not just having more friends, but to find mentors as well. And even if that was not necessarily available, find people that would hold me accountable to the things that I did. Because I do realize that I have this problem that I'm kind of like what you would call this. I mean, I've been described as a maverick before, where I would just go all over the place and I'll end up doing all sorts of like random small projects. And you can see these traces, these ideas where I'll put in time and effort. I'll set things up. The vestigial website, I think, was a very good example of this. I'll put in effort, I'll put in time, and there was no real clear accountability or things that to hold me there to make sure that I committed to this plan, to the strategy that I set into place. And you ended up with this very sporadic changing and very rapidly changing kind of flavor to the website and the kind of content that I did. Whereas I felt that if I had found a better network of people to begin with and to hold me accountable and say that this is the strategy that you have laid out and I explain my strategy to them and they make sure that I stick to that and they can guide me along that as well. I think that the way that I shaped some of the things that I did within the esports scene as well, would have been very different, and I would think it might even have been much more successful.
Hmm. All right. Um. Although I mean, sometimes it just comes down to like I would say fate, but it's kind of like just opportunities of whether if it even happens or not, right? I mean, meeting people is just generally a pretty random affair,
Well, I mean, it's
so
not
to
just
say.
about meeting people, it's actively seeking people or actively making people part of your plan for success. And that's one of the things that I felt that I didn't do. And I think that that was kind of the thinking I had as well. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm not as lucky as those people out there who have like a higher level of charisma, who are able to do networking much more effectively. Whereas I was just completely missing this knowledge that I needed to do this. I needed people to go out there. And even if this person wasn't necessarily the most competent person out there, just getting my classmate to hold me accountable. It's like, yeah, stop spending the money, stop going to McDonald's, and don't take a taxi home and stuff like that. That's very simple forms of accountability. And I think that these are things that friends do amongst each other. And even at that level, I was missing those kind of things. Or somebody that
Mhm.
say that you're saying these things, but you're being hypocrite because uh you're not committing to what you say. And I think that it takes a certain level of moral courage to do that within a friendship. But I think I should have made it very clear that this is what I was looking out for, and this can be another way that I could seek to build relationships between myself and other people, where I can give ideas, and then in exchange they could enforce me, have this level of enforcement that I will commit to those ideas. Now I'm just curious to you as well. Now that I shared this insight, do you think you have done anything differently as well?
I think I've pretty much done like to a certain degree of what you mentioned. So I actually back in like I don't know maybe like 5 6 years ago, I used to have this very huge interest in like anime, and so I actually went around meeting people who were pretty much in the industry, and even until now I'm quite in touch with them. And then from there I actually did quite a lot of like side gigs and ventures whereby like I'll actually collaborate with artists, and then we'll kind of like try and design t-shirts, and then we try and sell them and things like that. Of course, back in the days it was a lot more lucrative as compared to now. But those were I guess those were actions that I did kind of take to try and line up and to have um people kind of plan around me in the things that I want to do as well. So I guess in a way I did kind of achieve it to a certain extent. Of course, we can always look back and say, we could have done better, and like we could have pushed it for more and things like that. But I guess that's all in the past now. So we pretty much just to like look forward and take the next step.
Well, I mean, on this topic, it just came to mind because when I was talking to one of my friends who studied psychology
Hmm.
and who intended to become a practicing psychologist and even going to become a psychiatrist in the future, and I was asking her about how do I help a player with depression, and one of the things is a very similar thing. It's about networking. It's not just about networking in the sense, oh, I need to get to know successful people and stuff like that. It's just having a group of people that you can reach out to and will reach back to you, and you can ping back and forth, and these will form what they call the safety net around this person who has got depression of sorts as well. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but just thinking about that and thinking about how do people help a person succeed, how does having a network of people help you beat adversity, how does having a network of people help you move forward in life. And I think that that's something that uh, was a very big insight for me in recent times, and something that I wish that I had realized earlier, because moving alone was something that I did a lot, and then I did a little bit too much. Now I think that's wrap up. This is the wrap up the first part, and we'll be back with part two of the Hypothesizzle podcast.